Welcome back to our thrilling tale of deception, desire, and unexpected alliances. In the last episode, we witnessed the transformation of a friendly Halloween party into a high-stakes auction of human companionship. Now, it's time to dive deeper into the heart of this bizarre spectacle. The lines between friendship, fantasy, and power are blurring as the bidding heats up. Old alliances are tested, new desires emerge, and shocking revelations are about to shatter the facade of normalcy. Are you ready for a wild ride? Let's uncover the secrets and desires that lurk beneath the surface of this extraordinary night. The life I dreamed of. Chapter 2. I was thirsty. Mandy paga, I told her firmly. Terry, 2 cups of kalana. The girls quickly left, giving me a chance to see how things were going. Standing nearby was a really ugly orc, who I would have never recognized if it weren't for his lovely companions. His mask must have been uncomfortable. Nice outfit, Raoul. A little too much makeup, though. Hell, it was my duty as a man to give him a hard time. Beautiful slave girls you have, Master Orc, I said to an old friend of mine. He was one of our first guests 6 years ago. He snorted. That garbage? Some trash I found on the way here. I had to imagine the smile I heard in his voice through the mask. The trash was his diminutive wife, Denise, dressed like a night elf from World of Warcraft. The long pointed ears were immediately conspicuous. The mesh bikini and burgundy cape matched perfectly. Standing next to her was a very tall blue girl with big curly horns on her head and hooves on her feet. I didn't recognize her at first, but then it hit me. I smirked. Sheila? Greetings, Master, she said with a charming smile. Perhaps you would be so kind as to free us from the clutches of this smelly, uncouth, vile kidnapper? I would be most grateful. I haven't seen Sheila in years. She went away to college a few years ago. I think she graduated. She was very attractive with bright yellow hair and a stunning breastplate of gold and yellow. Another gold plate was strapped to her waist, and a long yellow silk dangled from it, making her look faintly presentable. She would make several hearts beat, a slave of the highest order. I'll see what I can do when the auction starts, I told her with a smile. My slave Mandy appeared beside me, stooped down and handed me a goblet of what I assumed was some sort of beer. I took it from her and took a deep sip. It was a dark beer, not Guinness, but something almost as thick, just what the doctor ordered. Terry appeared a few minutes later, standing and holding 2 more chalices. You 2 can have 1 glass each, I told her. Thank you, sir, she said sweetly, setting down her glasses and handing one to her comrade in chains. Torque is ready to trade. Both of these worthless ones for one of yours, Torque barked, pulling on the leashes attached to his 2 women. Tempting, Torque. It was tempting. If I made the deal before the auction, would I get money from the sellers, 50 gold pieces each? Then I would have an even better chance of buying back my girls. I'll have to discuss this with Troy. Perhaps later. May I offer you something to drink? Not now. Torque will try to find someone foolish enough to take these troublesome creatures off my leash. He went away, and the girls struggled cutely on their leashes, pretending to be dragged along against their will. Sheila had to walk carefully. The shoes she was wearing added a good 6 inches to her already small stature. It's a pity I have to buy back my women. Otherwise, I'd be enjoying something else. I chatted for a while. My girls were always there for me, running errands for me, taking care of me. They were very openly affectionate, which was perplexing. The fact that Terry acted this way, and Amanda not only accepted her friend's attention, but mimicked it, must have come as a surprise to most of our friends. Hell, it was a surprise to me. Just a few days ago, it was unthinkable. The atmosphere was electric. I had never felt anything like it. The submissive women, the ease with which the men held them. The whole thing was breathtaking. The outfits were, for the most part, extremely skimpy. I had known these women for many years. Amanda was somewhat reserved, with a small circle of close friends. I, on the other hand, didn't have many close friends. But I was friends with everyone. I was prone to flirting, but with humor, never going too far, and rarely overstepping my bounds. Over the years, I became a little friendlier with some of the women, particularly Erica, our hostess, Tasha, and Denise Raoul. That's partly why the actions of Terry, and to a lesser extent, Kayla caused me surprise. With none of them, I had never stepped out of line before. Today, if I wanted to, I could marry them. I sent Terry to find out all she could about the contests. More gold would be nice. I won't bore you with the details of the contests they had, but most of them were either skill-based or knowledge-based. It made sense. Any power-based contests wouldn't be very fair for female majors. Admittedly, I had benefited from some of the fraternity games I had participated in, as well as my endless knowledge of useless trivia. I don't know if I was the best, but I did it better than most, and when all was said and done, I had another 840 gold in addition to the original 1,000. I was sure I had more gold than anyone else. There were only 4 of us who brought 2 slaves each. Raoul and Greg were not doing well. Only Michelle seemed to be doing well, and I didn't see her as a competitor at the auction. I found it particularly interesting that Michelle, Erica's cousin, was the mistress of our hosts, Erica and her husband Dale. She openly kept her slaves in line with her ready crop. The image of Dale licking her boot will stay with me long after the party is over. By the end of the game, we had looked around almost the entire house and yard. It was surprisingly warm outside for this late in the season. The temperature was probably below 70 degrees. It was over 80 during the day, and I suspected it would get cooler by the end of the night, a nice change from the hot indoor air. There were several small tents set up in the backyard, about 10 feet square, that rented out for 50 gold pieces per hour. It looked interesting. A little privacy wouldn't hurt. Solitude would be even more enjoyable. During our travels, I ran into Michelle and took her aside for a few minutes. I brought her up to speed and taught her a few important phrases for the auction. She seemed to be having a great time. "Too bad you're not selling, you'd be at the top of my list," she teased. "I bet you'd be hard to break." Her emphasis on hard made me shiver. "A private sale might be good for you. Being yours for one night might be interesting," I told her. "I have a feeling you're going to have a lot of work to do as it is. I wouldn't want you to be all worn out by the time the game comes around. That wouldn't be fun." Damn, what a hard sell. "Pick a date and I'll be there with bells on." "No need for bells. This outfit will fit just fine." She leaned closer, her face an inch from mine. "Are you teasing me? Can Amanda play too?" I asked, hyped by the idea. Michelle's eyes went wide. Would she say yes? "Maybe. We're exploring new areas of our relationship," I admitted. "That explains the story with Terry, I guess." She smiled devilishly. "Anytime she wants to, the offer is open. Why don't you see if you can do it?" "I think I will," I told her. "Pretty wild night you guys are having here." She laughed. "I guess we haven't seen anything yet." I turned to leave, but she stopped me. "Open your mouth and close your eyes." She handed me something along the lines of a flavorless vial. "A little gift, to get you ready if this party gets as wild as I think it will. Have fun tonight, handsome." I went back to my girls, and we wandered around the house when it was about half an hour before the auction started. I could feel the excitement building in the air. We settled down in a dim corner of the office on a pile of cushions, watching what was going on around us. Troy appeared with Kayla under his arm and sat down next to us. I enjoyed the sight of her pulling herself closer to us. I sat on the ground with my girls next to me, and the view was breathtaking. "Good job on the contests," he said, seating himself next to us. "I got above 400. If he thought 400 was doing well, it further increased my chances. "Good. We have over 2,700 total. Let me give you another 1,000 to buy these 2. I counted out the large 50 gold coins. "That leaves 840 to buy Kayla. If I need more, we can negotiate." 1920, he said, counting the coins. "I hope that's enough. Any strategy?" "I can't remember a single one. It all depends on what order they show up in. I think Wendy, Penny, and Sheila will get the big bucks, but there's no way to tell for sure." He nodded. I could see Terry fidgeting, demanding my attention. "Is there something you want to say, Kajira?" "Mandy will be worth a lot, Master. Don't worry about that girl. Save the money for Amanda. If I go first, let them sell me. You can always trade me later." "Master?" said Mandy quietly, catching my attention. "Speak. If Terry goes first, buy Terry. If you give up Terry and someone outbid you for Mandy, you won't get either of us. Buy Terry, Master." She was very unlike a slave. Terry was behaving badly. Kayla returned with our mugs of Paggy, and I pushed Terry away. "Behave yourself, slave girl." With a giggle, she crawled over to Troy. "This girl hopes you can buy all of us, master. We'll make good Kajir. I'm sure I can make you happy." Kayla seemed to be in a good mood. She handed Troy his mug and then stroked Terry's long, luxurious hair. "She's beautiful, isn't she, master?" Troy's smile grew even wider. "Too beautiful, I'm afraid. We have 3 of the most beautiful women here. Many magisters will try to buy them off us." Kayla walked over to me and took Terry's place. I looked over at Troy, who hadn't noticed our actions. He was laying back on the pillows with sweet Terry cuddled up to him. God, that girl was nothing but trouble. Mandy sat quietly next to me, watching her friend. I walked over to her and nudged her. "Kajira, your fate is in the hands of this master. Perhaps you should help your sister convince him that you are worthy of purchase." She cast me a puzzled look that was hard to decipher. A tiny smile lifted the corners of her mouth. "As you wish, master," she said quietly, shifting on the pillows. Damn, I was a lucky man. Maybe I hadn't realized it the last few years. Amanda's departure seemed to be the sign Kayla had been waiting for. Jesus. This exceeded my expectations, way beyond. I thought our slave girls would be friendly, but Kayla was making me reconsider. I wondered if Troy knew his wife's intentions. It's nice for now. After the auction, I guess I can rent one of these marquees and see if you deserve to be in red silk. Kayla? I never expected anything like this from her. She usually didn't even flirt. I thought she was almost as uptight as Amanda. But now? Unbelievable. Damn it. I heard bells ringing and looked up to see one of the pretty maids hired for the party walk by, ringing a bell. "The auction is in 10 minutes. All slaves report to the auctioneer." When I looked back, I saw that the other 3 were sitting down, adjusting their outfits. Mandy had to be very careful. Kayla let go of me and sat down as well. "Buy Kayla, master," she said furiously. "Kayla should belong to Master Jack." I laughed and patted her on the back. "Go ahead and get ready to buy, Kajira." My girls stopped by to give me a kiss, which I happily did. "Remember," Terry whispered, "buy Mandy, whatever it takes." Troy stood up and straightened up. "Shit, you going home with both of them tonight?" He laughed. "The naughty slave girls have spoken, I guess," I smiled. "Yes, and I assure you, Terry won't be wearing white anymore." He shook his head. "You're a lucky bloody bastard. I don't know if I would have survived an evening with that couple." He grinned. Still, what a way to go. The main hall was filling up fast. We found a seat a little away from the auction area, with our backs to the corner. Looking around, I started to get worried. There seemed to be several small groups forming there. Hopefully they didn't have the same ideas as us. The wait wasn't long. Michelle walked onto the stage, dressed in her dominatrix outfit. She led a woman dressed as Princess Leia towards the stage. The hall was dark, but the stage was brightly lit. The slave girls up for auction were on display for all to see. Michelle attached the slave pole leash to Leah's collar and then turned to face us. Before we begin, I would like to establish some ground rules. The safety and comfort of our slave girls is paramount. Also, any slave can end their slavery and become a free man by simply removing their collar, and no one can stop them from doing so. Finally, all slaves have a common safe word tonight. We realize that sometimes a no uttered by a slave does not necessarily mean no, but any slave who utters the safe word must be heard. The safe word is lavender. I repeat, lavender. If your slave says lavender, stop what you are doing immediately and find out what your slave's limitations are. A master who loses a slave because he or she removed the collar will not receive a refund. A master who fails to heed the safe word will have his slave and other slaves stripped and dealt with severely. One must not cover his mouth, as this will prevent him from using his safe word. Do you understand the rules? There was a ragged chorus of yes in response. Let there be no mistake. Each master present, please raise your hand if you understand and agree to these rules. All hands were quickly raised, and the auction began. Michelle stepped into the background and encouraged our Princess Leia to move for us by pushing her. Pilar had made a good choice. Her slender figure matched the outfit well, and the tufts of hair on each side of her head were just perfect. Her costume wasn't the most creative, but her husband's full-body Jabba the Hutt was striking. I wonder how long it would be before he was taken off. He had to be miserable. The bidding started at 100, and there were many willing bidders. There was excitement. Someone was going to get their hands on this beauty, and who knows what the consequences would be. The bidding escalated, first by 20, then by 50. Eventually, the bidding escalated into a bidding war between Victor and Jerry, who was the eventual winner. Bidding ended at 650, which seemed like a good price. It looked great, and for the first sale of the evening, I figured it wasn't too bad. Considering that each master starts at 500 gold for a slave and gets a couple hundred more from contests, the average price should be around 600. We quickly passed through two more. Tasha Evans, dressed as a vampire blood slave, wearing a red dress and with bite marks on her neck. She was our only black person, and I figured the exotic appeal of her possession would raise her price. Never mind that she was gorgeous. Ho. Very beautiful. She went for 700, a bargain. Poor girl went to Cole, who was rude even under the best of circumstances. She didn't look pleased. For a moment I thought that if I hadn't committed to buying back my wife and our friend, I might own her. Maybe. If only. If I counted correctly, there were 16 female slaves at the auction, sold to 11 male masters. If they all went for over 600, and the most valuable slaves probably closer to 1,000, there wouldn't be enough money for all of them. Tasha was followed by Savannah, Cole's wife, in a crazy comedy outfit, with a huge fake bust, a huge fake ass, and a weird headdress that made her top appear flat. She was supposed to be a mad scientist's experiment in creating the perfect girl. She wasn't bad looking, but her outfit was the least slave-like and completely concealed her. Her value reached 480 gold, although she was trying hard to increase her value. I was caught off guard when Kayla came on stage. She looked cute and posed on stage. I stayed out of the bidding at first, and when it slowed down around 500, I got in on the action. At the 660 mark, there were only two of us left, and the second was Greg, whom my wife couldn't stand. I couldn't let him take her. Amanda would never forgive me for that. I'm not sure what she didn't like about him. Sure, he could be a smartass, but for the most part he didn't seem all that bad. Sure, he was an obnoxious drunk, but he was usually quick to apologize the next day. Fortunately, at 720 he refused, and our partnership had its first success. I was a little concerned that we wouldn't be able to afford the other two. I found her attractive, but the thought of her costing more than Tasha was troubling. I went up to the stage, paid my 720, and put the leashes on my new slave girl. She obediently followed me to my corner, and I gave her another 120 that I had left, and told her to take it to her husband. She came back to me and turned and lay down next to me. Thank you, master, for buying Kayla. I reached out and stroked her shoulder. A bargain at twice the price. Kayla will do her best to make sure you continue to believe that. She lowered her voice, stepping out of character. I was so worried Greg would interrupt you. I couldn't stand the bastard. Her too? Greg was obviously not popular with the ladies. Our first man for the evening was Dave Moore. I was still surprised that he had agreed to be a slave. He was a big, athletically built guy, and I imagine there were a few wives among those present who wouldn't mind being on his leash. I wasn't really interested in the bidding, and I was looking at my silk girl. I wondered how much she was worth. She purred delightedly. No safe words, teased I. Foolish master, you can't do anything to your slave that would make her even think of that horrible word. As I kissed her, I could see that the bidding for Dave was winding down. Even in the relative darkness of our corner, I noticed a few curious eyes. There were those who didn't find the purchase of a male slave interesting. I pushed her away. Remember your place, slave girl. Now you take care of me and I'll oversee the process. Yes, master. Kayla knows her place. Good girl. I was surprised to see one of the male servants paying for the slave. Then he pulled Dave aside and stayed with him. I put two and two together and decided that Michelle had bought Dave for herself through a trusted servant. She must have had over 1,500 gold since she started out with 2 slaves and seemed to excel in the contests. In addition, she had access to the gold chests. Who knows what her limit was? Wendy, our cave girl, was escorted to the stage, and I sat down. This was going to be interesting. I expected her to go high. She struggled with her chains, playing out a magnificent performance, dropping into a low crouch and glaring at the audience. And within moments, her price was the highest of the evening. At 800, there were still 3 people bidding on her. The situation was heating up. Raoul dropped out of the bidding at 900, while Greg and Michelle's trustee continued to bid for her. In the end, Michelle won at 1020, about what I was hoping for in terms of price. I was secretly hoping Greg would win, as it would take him out of the running for my girls, and Wendy seemed to get along with him as well as anyone. I was a little surprised that Michelle was bidding so aggressively for her. She had splurged early, shelling out about 1,500 for the 2 slave girls. Kayla watched the bidding with interest. Lucky slave, I'd rather be owned by Michelle than Greg. Would you rather be owned by a woman? I teased. Against Greg? No question about it. Besides, she has a handsome male slave. She leaned over and kissed me. Of course, Kayla is much happier being owned by her real master. She wouldn't choose anyone else. It took my breath away when I saw my wife accompanied by Michelle on stage. God, she looked so good. The hall became quiet, and even before the official opening of the bidding, I heard Greg shout, 1,000! Damn it, this is exactly what I was afraid of. Amanda stood tall, almost haughty. Michelle said, "Show yourself, Slave Mountain." Amanda looked shocked, but obediently straightened up. Even from where I was sitting, I could see that she was blushing. This slave girl came to us from Earth 2, Gore, and she still needs to settle in. A barbarian slave. Who's offering 1050? 1100, Raoul shouted. 1150, shouted Greg. 1200, Raoul replied. I suspected that Raoul was our most likely rival, and I was afraid we wouldn't have enough money for Terry if the price was much higher. Both boys had brought 2 slaves each, plus whatever they'd managed to earn from the contests. 13, Raoul replied. I saw a disappointed Greg sit down and start sipping the drink he was working on. I was glad he'd cut loose. Michelle stepped around Amanda. This slave girl is not broken and is waiting for a real master to tame her. Are there no real men here today? Teased Michelle. There were a lot of very attractive women in the building, but Amanda was Amanda, the look of a TV star, the face of an angel, a body straight out of the pages of Playboy, and she was selling. I had no doubt that these men would be secretly picturing Amanda as they enjoyed the fruits of the evening. 1400, Troy announced. 15. 16. Raoul and my partner went back and forth. I was surprised that Raoul had so many. I didn't think he did so well in contests. Troy looked at me perplexed. I nodded decisively. 1700, Troy answered, standing up. There was silence in the room for a few seconds before Raoul answered again. 18. The entire room was glued to the screen watching the auction. Michelle was still in control of the situation. We have 1800 from the Orc Lord. Surely this piece is worth as much or more. Nadu, she said sharply. I saw the people in front leaning forward to see better. She closed her eyes. 1900, Troy said. 1900, Michelle laughed, stroking my wife's hair. A bargain for such a delightful slave girl. Imagine owning the legendary Amanda, even if only for one evening. She crouched behind her. Raoul leaned over him, talking to John Peters. Shit, looks like we weren't the only ones on the team. 1950, he said. Troy made one last attempt for the piece. 1980, 2000, Raoul replied. There was a murmur in the crowd. The bidding was almost twice as high as it had been for Wendy, and I thought she would be one of the most expensive. It was a disaster. We were out of the game. Troy shook his head disappointedly and sat down. I have 2,000 gold from the Orc Lord. Are there any other bidders? Anyone? She looked around, waiting a few seconds. Sold, for 2,000 gold pieces. Lucky beast, come get your prize. I was shocked to see Raoul jump up and high-five John Peters, and then pop up on stage to put on a leash. She looked at me nervously as she was led off the stage. What was it they said about the best laid plans? The next 3 slave auctions passed me by in a daze. How was I going to get Amanda back? Raoul was decent enough. I even liked him, and John Peters didn't seem like a problem. But still, most of the people gathered looked cheerful and upbeat, and it didn't look like the other men were having much trouble selling their wives. I seemed to be alone in this concern. I completely missed the sale of Mindy, the Chinese concubine, as well as our host Dale. I couldn't think straight. By the time I paid attention again, Penny was starting to get bets on. She was wearing the most daring outfit. She was tall, almost 6 feet, with long hair split into 2 long strands. I expected her to sell well, but I was afraid too much had already been spent. Her husband hadn't bought anyone else yet, but couldn't put her up for auction. Only Greg, Troy, and Victor didn't own slaves yet. I was surprised Greg didn't bid big on it. He backed out early. In the end, Victor was able to buy her for the bargain price of $650, the same price as Princess Leia. Gold was already becoming scarce. I would have paid $1,000 for her. Easy. Kayla stopped her caring duties. We'll still get Terry and figure out how to trade her for Amanda after the auction, she reassured me, adding a belated master. I knew only Greg had gold left to offer us a price for Terry, unless Elliot, Penny's husband, teamed up with someone. But even then, we'd be outbid. Small consolation. Michelle called a break in the auction. We have reached the halfway point and will take a short break for appetizers. The auction will start again in 10 minutes. Just then Troy came up. Damn, that was crazy. By the end of the auction, no one will have any gold left as things are going their way. Troy did the numbers. He was the CFO of a large company. I was still surprised when I saw him pull out his smartphone. From what I understand, hardly anyone has more than 400 left, except Greg and Elliot. That and Kim, of course, but I think she'll spend hers on Darius. I'm going to check on something. I'll be back in a second. Kayla, stay with Troy. Gladly, Master, she said to my back. I found Michelle. I had an idea. Hey, Michelle, do I have a question? Sure. What's the deal with Amanda, huh? 2,000? I didn't think anyone would settle for more than 1,000, maybe 1,200, she said. The rules looked like there were other ways to earn gold, other than contests. Is that right? She laughed. I kept wondering when someone would figure it out. There are already a few of them. Of course, we'll have some slave contests later. Her smirk made me think she was still holding back. And? I asked. The servants may be sponsored. As you can imagine, this party turned out to be a lot more expensive than we thought. Dale isn't very happy that we blew through the budget. By a lot. So if anyone is willing to help sponsor the servants, and we have 6 of them, they can earn some gold. How does it work? I asked. For $100, you own this servant, not as a regular slave, but as a working slave. Of course, as their master, you get privileges. You get 100 gold pieces, and you can cash in all the gold tips they earn for dollars. $1 for a gold tip. So far, they haven't earned much, but once the auction is over, I expect their tips to increase. It can get you a lot of gold, but it can also cost you a lot of money. I'll take them, I told her. Which one? She asked. All of them. I pulled a dozen Morgan's dollars out of my bag and counted them out. They're worth about $50 each, if you want. I'll change them for cash after the party. I don't have my wallet with me. I held out the coins to her. She looked surprised. What are you up to, Jack? I'm going to find a way to get my wife back, I explained. Come on, Raoul won't be a bad master. She counted out another 600 gold pieces to me. That should be enough to last you a long time with what you already have. I think there will be a few good deals at the end. Everyone is draining their wallets early. That's what I'm counting on. Maybe a 2-for-1 deal or something, I told her. Good luck. She seemed to have something else on her mind. You know Erica is still for sale. If Greg tries to buy her, I can make you outbid him. I have a few gold in reserve, and I'm willing to lay out up to 300 if you do. Any more than that, and I'll cheat. Why did we even invite him? None of the women here want anything to do with him. At least I know Amanda, Terry, and Kayla don't. And now Erica too. We all love Alice. We put up with him for her. She glanced at her watch. Gotta run. The auction is about to start. Terry will be first after the break. Thank you, Michelle. You're welcome, handsome. And remember what I said about Erica. She and I would both be grateful if you would keep her out of Greg's hands. Very grateful. I might even let you be in charge. We're both very good at tying ties. She bestowed a smile on me. She got up after Terry. Understood. I'll do my best. I turned back to Troy. Terry is next. Spend what you need to, and then I'll take whatever money we have left and see if I can't expand our harem. if that's okay with you. I held back my extra 600. I see. Anyway, it's mostly your money. I cornered the two maids and told them about their new owner. They had almost 30 gold pieces, which I promised to cash. I gave each of them a silver dollar. This is worth about $50, almost $30 in silver alone, I explained, taking the gold coins from them. I'll cash them in after the party if you want, or you can keep them. They seemed happy with the deal. We can talk again after the auction. Michelle announced the start of the auction, and I had to leave. Terry, who looked too good in her outfit, was brought on stage. The way I see it, we might get lucky. With Sheila and Erica still to come, and most of the gold already taken out of the game, bidding for Terry could be easy. I was right. Greg didn't even bother trying when Troy started haggling, and Elliot gave him 700. I knew he could afford more, but my guess was that he was expecting Erica or Sheila, maybe Alice or even Denise. Their loss was my gain. Troy went on stage to get Terry, and within seconds she came crawling toward us with almost 1,500 gold in her hand. She had to bend over Kayla to give it to me. My girl went back to her duties. I can't believe you didn't buy Amanda, she said with annoyance. I know. We only had 1,980, and we were outbid, but I'm working on a plan. I kissed her. I'm glad we got you back. Now get to Troy. I need to get something. She looked at me curiously, but held her tongue. At least for a moment. Terry saw what Kayla was up to, and a wicked grin appeared on her face. Someone naughty, she teased. Kayla chuckled. Do you want to help me, Kajira? Terry sighed. I wish I could. Our other master needs attention too. She turned and walked back to Troy. Erica was already at the 600 level, and Greg and Elliot were betting on her. Elliot was out at 700, and I outbid Greg at 850, 550 out of pocket. That left me with over 1,400 in the end. I also earned a look from Greg. Oh well, I went up on stage and took Erica on a leash. She looked incredible. After Penny's avatar costume, it was probably the nicest outfit, second only to Wendy's cave girl. I returned her to my corner while Darius, the last of the male slaves, was being auctioned off. It still seemed strange to me that two of the most handsome men in the party had decided to become slaves. Thank God you bought me, Jack. I don't know what I would have done otherwise. Remind me why we invited Greg in the first place? She asked, settling down next to me, across from Kayla. Kayla was still continuing her tricks. Alice, I reminded her. She rolled her eyes. It doesn't seem worth it. I owe you one. She leaned over and kissed me gently. How can your lowly slave repay you, master? I'll think of something, Kajira, she chuckled. You bet. The bidding stopped on Darius at the 300 mark. Kim had no competition as Michelle was out, and Lisa was unable to bid. He looked intimidating. Imagine Dwight Howard as Kunta Kinte. Tattered rough cloth pants, a rope instead of a belt. It didn't seem fair. 400, I said loudly, surprising everyone. Kim looked at me intently. 450, she said. Erica was pressed against me. What are you doing? She asked. A money drain. I know she has over 500 and he's the last available man, I explained. 480, I announced. 500, Kim replied angrily. I let her take him. I had no interest in a large slave, especially one that looked like it could snap me in half. I expected Kim to like it. Sheila, our young Drania, was escorted out. I looked back and saw Greg stand up and look at me for a second. Again, he hurried his answer. 500, he announced. Before she was even tied up, Elliot parried. 600. The bids were in the hundreds, indicating that the price could be high. Michelle was already asking for the next bid. 650, Greg growled. 700, I said. Do you want to take her? Asked Erica. No, but I don't want Greg to buy it too cheap. 750, Elliot objected, and Greg upped the ante to 800. From what I understood, Greg only bid on the girls he really wanted to acquire. With Penny, Erica, and Amanda gone, Sheila was probably the most desirable of the rest. In this crowd of mostly 30-somethings, her fresh youthfulness came in handy. 850, I said, looking at Greg and smiling. He looked apoplectic. 1,000. Sheila looked at me hopefully. as did our auctioneer Michel, and I felt a brief twinge of remorse as I let her go. He was going to buy someone today. Let it be Raoul's daughter, since he had my wife. That would work to his advantage. Poor girl. She didn't know that crowd. She had little idea who she'd been sold to. Let's hope he wasn't too drunk. Only Elliot was left with untouched money. All the other masters had at least one slave each, except for Raoul and John. My breath caught in my throat. "You're both misbehaving," I whispered, as Michel brought the next slave onto the stage. Everyone looking in our direction couldn't help but notice Erica's actions. "Can we stop?" asked Erica angrily. "Take it easy, okay? Let's not make a mess," I said. Michel's servant appeared. "I have been instructed to give you this," he said, placing 6 large 50 gold coins in my hands. "Thanks," I said, and added them to my stash. Erica's payment. After emptying Greg's chest, things went according to my new plan. One by one, I bought the remaining slaves, losing only 2. Jean Harris went to Elliot for 640. She was one of the skinniest women in the room, and she made a damn good girl. I managed to get both of Greg's slave girls, his wife Alice and her sister Marie, for less than 400 each. They were pretty, but their outfits of brutal, kidnapped women were rather scary. They were the cheapest sellers of the night, and they didn't seem happy about it. The few who were still bidding were waiting for the last girls. Denise, the night elf, was probably their target. After I brought the first of the sisters over, Erica and Kayla, to my displeasure, stopped what they were doing. Afterward, I let Rex outbid me for Jewel Peters, who was dressed as a Roman slave girl. I was saving up for Denise, the last auction of the night. Everyone who still had money left was bidding for her, but at a price of 500 gold pieces, there was no competition left. She was mine. At the beginning of the evening, she could have gone for 800 or more. She was very good as a night elf. I suppose my fellow masters may have had some bitterness toward me. Only Rex and Michel had 2 slaves each. Troy and I had 6, and I still had almost 100 left. Oh well, next time they should bring more than 1 slave. Michel appeared on the stage, announcing the end of the auction. "It seems it's time for our masters and their new slaves to get to know each other better. I remind everyone of the house rules and the safe word lavender. Try to behave yourselves. It's someone else's wife who owns you, and someone else now owns yours. Think about karma. Toward the end of the evening, we'll have some contests. They'll be announced every hour, on the hour. The party started at 8 in the evening, and it was past 11. Usually these parties lasted until 2 o'clock, and many stayed until 4 in the morning or later. I wondered how many contests we would have. I stood up and waved my hand at Troy. "Let's find a quiet place to settle this," I told him. We headed to the study where we had camped earlier, and found it at our disposal. I blew out the 2 candles in the room, leaving only 1. I summoned our new slaves, and stood over them. "You are now slaves of Horus. I hope you understand what that means. We will not harm or abuse you, but we expect you to obey. Kayla and Terry will teach you what is required of you. Troy will also work with you. You will address him as master, and only as master. Have I got that right, slave girls?" The girls nodded. I looked at each in turn, waiting for a response. I started with Terry and Kayla, each of whom replied, "Yes, master." Looking at Erica, she nodded. "Yes, master. Kajira Erica understands." I smiled. Someone did some research. The other 3 responded in the same way. I left Erica and Denise with Terry, Kayla, and Troy, while I pushed Alice and Marie aside. "I'm lucky you both came to the auction so late. I would never have been able to afford you in the first half." They didn't look happy with their outcome, but they seemed to be pleased with it. "You think so?" asked Alice. I stared at her. "How do you address me?" I said threateningly. "Master. I'm sorry, master. Is that what you think, master?" "I'm sure of it. 700 to 800 each," my guest said. "If you change your outfits a little, it could be 1,000, I explained. "Changes, master?" asked Marie. "What kind of changes?" "They're good. Don't get me wrong. But they don't show you as well as they could. They're rather intimidating. The dirt hides your beauty and the outfits themselves should be more revealing," I explained. Alice glanced at her sister. "I told you so," she whispered. "It wouldn't have mattered anyway. Everyone was broke when we put the house on the market, Marie objected. Slaves, I would like to make you more attractive, but only as much as you are willing, given the house rules. Will you agree with Kajira Terry and change your outfits? Call it vanity, but I want my slave girls to be the nicest in the house. Changed how, master? Asked Alice nervously. I'll let Terry work with you on it. She has an aptitude for it. If you agree. The sisters looked at each other, then turned back to me. Whatever master wishes, Alice answered for both of them. Great. Wait here. I walked over to Terry and pulled her away from her workout. I explained to her what I wanted and told her my expectations. Yes, master. Terry understands everything. She will prepare the new girls for you in the most exquisite way. I pulled her to me and kissed her. Thank you, sweet Terry. I know you will. Sir, can this girl ask a question? Speak. Maybe master will tell this girl about his plans to bring Kajira Mandy back? Maybe, I told her with a smile. Afterward, she hugged me tightly. Thank you, teacher. I miss my sister already. She pulled away, and I watched her take the new girls in tow and disappear upstairs. I had one more mission to accomplish. I tracked down the servant girls and gathered 4 of them together. They were a smorgasbord of young beauty. Fiona, a pale redhead, Erin, a tanned blonde athlete, Beth, a brunette, and Jasmine, a slender runner with milk chocolate skin, whose legs seemed to reach up to her chin. Thank goodness they weren't up for auction. That would have been a huge detriment to the economy. Ladies, as you may know, I am your sponsor for this evening. Any tips you receive from guests tonight, I will buy from you, $1 for each gold piece. I checked out the 2 girls I hadn't caught up with earlier and got another 36 gold dollars from them. I gave them each a silver dollar. I again explained the value of pure silver coins. I pulled out 4 more and gave them each one. The slave girl who was sold for 2,000 gold pieces, do you all remember her? Everyone nodded quickly. Fine. I want one of you to watch her at all times. This is in addition to your normal duties. 15 minutes each, then disconnect and report back to me. Understood? Everyone agreed. The red-haired beauty, Fiona, asked, Are Michelle and Erica okay with that? I nodded. My slave Erica will be told everything, and Michelle is the one who sold me your services. I will make sure there are no recriminations. They agreed, and the slender brunette Beth took the first watch. I left them feeling a little better about the situation. A little. I went back into the office and sat next to Troy while Kayla got her understudies in the right frame of mind. I watched them work out a half-dozen positions. Do you want to tell me your plan? Asked Troy. He sounded a little annoyed. I'm sorry I couldn't tell you sooner. I managed to get almost 1,000 more gold, including 300 if I agreed to buy Erica when Greg tried to get her. After that, I decided that we should get as many slaves as possible. That way we can keep Terry and Kayla, maybe Erica, and trade the rest for Amanda, once they are well trained and made as obedient as possible. Denise is a cutie, but I don't know how far Alice and Marie's merger will go in bringing Amanda back, he said. Marie is anorexic and Alice is just ugly. Ugly? Anorexic? Harsh. Alice had an amazing body and Marie looked like a model. Not everyone can match Amanda, but I think they were both more than good. It's doable. He continued. And if you add Erica to that offer, I don't know how they can refuse. We shall see. I'm hoping the novelty and pleasure of owning Amanda will wear off in the next hour or so, and 3 new slaves instead of 1 will be enough. Besides, sisters have to be worth something. While we were talking, Erica and Denise came over and lowered themselves down. Check them out, masters, Kayla said with a smile. Nada, I barked. Both girls quickly assumed their respective positions. Your turn, I said to Troy. The tower, he said. The girls quickly realized. Bera, I told them. They obediently continued to do everything. Don't embarrass me, slave, hissed Kayla. To get her point across, she hit Denise with the leash. The girl cowered, but remained silent. Denise was still wearing her cloak. One of the slave girls decided to fix that. I stopped her. Remember the rules, Kajira. Besides, I like it. I stood up and lowered myself between them. Do you realize what this position is for, Kajira? Erika quickly replied. For binding, master. Exactly. I pulled a few leather strips from my pouch, one of the dozen I'd brought with me. I quickly slipped them around her arms. Turning around, I did the same to Denise. Moving to their feet, I tied their ankles together. How are you feeling, Kajira Denise? I asked. She whimpered. Helpless, master. Helpless and scared. Okay. I sat back down in my seat. Troy grinned and stood up. You know the bracelets command? Kayla replied. Forgive me, master. I did not instruct them to do so. Erika spoke up and said the correct position. Excellent. Yes. Let me help you. He stood over Erika's legs, bent over, and lifted her upright. Then he turned and did the same to Denise. Leash, he said quickly, and both girls obediently turned their heads to the side with their chins up. You face the master, whichever side he is on. Understood? He said it rather forcefully. Yes, master, Denise whispered. I pulled myself closer to Troy. Why don't we untie them? I'd like to see a few more positions. We worked with them for a while longer, before letting them rest. Erika seemed eager to take on slavery, but Denise looked frightened. I pulled her aside, sat down, and gestured in front of me, Nadu Kajira. Wow, what a whirlwind of a night! The stakes are higher than ever as our characters navigate this twisted game of desire and power. We witnessed how the auction grew into frantic bidding, and the boundaries between friends and rivals became increasingly blurred. Uncovering hidden alliances and unexpected strategies added a new level of complexity to the story. As the dust settles from the first round of bidding, we can only wonder what surprises the second half of the auction will bring. Will old friendships survive? Or will the temptation of power and possession tear them apart? What about the psychological toll of this experience? As characters wrestle with their desires and blurred boundaries of consent, we are forced to confront our own understanding of morality and power dynamics. This is just the beginning. The story is far from over. Join us in the next part as we dive deeper into the minds and hearts of our characters. Will love conquer all, or will they be consumed by the darkness of desires? Don't miss the shocking twists and turns that await you. Visit our Patreon for full information without formatting. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below.